ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकाय चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी इति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणी निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणी वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च
कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः।
जय
श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे।
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for coming today. And we will today discuss on the topic of broadly the importance of boundaries in our life. We're discussing based on the Ramayan, and I'll discuss this in three broad parts: the importance of boundaries, then we'll talk about how to establish boundaries, and then how to protect the boundaries when the boundaries are being for whatever reason they get violated. So we have been broadly discussing the Ramayan and life lessons from the Ramayan. And in the previous two sessions, I talked about how, first of all, when something starts going wrong, how does it start? What is the origin of that? So first we discussed about yesterday, Shurpanakha, is she a victim or she's a victimizer? You can say she was a victim, but she became a victimizer. Then I discussed about how she manipulated Ravan. And we discussed the contrast between the manipulation that happened on the side of Manthara by Kaikai, or by Manthara of Kaikai, and by Shurpanakha of Ravan. So now, in the narrative, Ravan has decided that I am going to get Sita. And he has set a whole conspiracy to go about doing it. So his plan is that he does not want to confront Ram right now. He's attracted, he wants to have Sita for himself. And he thinks, if I can have Sita for myself, then if Ram loses Sita, then that may itself weaken him so much that he may just become weak and he may himself die. Or if he has to come, he can't come to me. Even if he reaches me, I'll be in my home territory in Lanka. I can easily crush him over there. So his plan is to sideline Sita. So have Sita alone, sideline Ram and Lakshman. And then initially his plan is not abduct Sita, it's more to attract Sita. Thinks, I am so wealthy, I am so powerful, Sita will just naturally come with me. She's given the opportunity. So with that plan, he sets things in motion. So we will analyze the story from the perspective of Sita, what she did and how things went off track, things went wrong. And underlying, we'll discuss that how, see, we have been discussing now at one level, our overall theme is that when somebody does wrong actions, so it could be because of wrong motivations. Like Shurpanakha, we discussed, her motivation itself was wrong. No, she was driven by lust. But then there could be wrong manipulations. Manipulation is normally wrong, but wrong manipulation, basically. So it was Shurpanakha who did something bad. Wrong manipulation was Ravan. Anyway, he would have done something bad, but because of Shurpanakha's influence, he did something first. Now we are discussing about how somebody may make wrong decisions, even when they don't have wrong motivations. So in both of this is what we'll be discussing about Sita over here. That now her decisions, how they were wrong. And when we discuss this, it's important to keep in mind that our focus is that we are trying to learn ethical lessons. So it's not so much that we are here to judge Sita. It's more that we are to learn. When we're saying wrong actions, we're not saying so much that Sita was wrong as the action was wrong. So our focus is in learning. This is not judging who is wrong. It's not so much judging who is wrong, but learning what is wrong. So Srila Prabhupada takes this approach when, for example, in the Bhagavad Gita, in the first chapter, he says how Arjuna is thoughtful. He's not rushing into actions. He is reflecting on what he should be doing. And this shows that he's qualified to gain the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita. And Krishna will give that knowledge to him. And in the second chapter, Prabhupada seems to suddenly change tack. And right in the first verse itself, Arjuna is in tears. Tears is a sign of indication of ignorance, attachment. And everybody is suffering from this skin disease, identifying with the body. And this kind of ignorance has to be countered. So is Arjuna right or wrong? Is Arjuna good or bad? Is Arjuna a thoughtful person or is Arjuna an attached person? Well, the point is Prabhupada is not so much judging Arjuna as Prabhupada is emphasizing the point that actually we can learn whatever lessons we want to. So chapter 1, Arjuna is thoughtful. Chapter 2, if you see the purports, Prabhupada says Arjuna is attached. So now there's another perspective which Prabhupada talks in other places is Arjuna is orchestrated by Krishna. So the Arjuna's illusion is actually Krishna's arrangement so that the Bhagavad Gita can be spoken. So at an ethical level, we can take multiple perspectives, this and this. They are opposing perspectives at one level, but both we can use for learning. Both can teach us something. And then when we look at this perspective, this is a transcendental perspective. At this point, we simply see everything is the Leela of the Lord. And everyone is orchestrated by the Lord for furthering his pastimes. At the transcendental level, we'd make no ethical analysis at all. Except everybody, whatever they're doing, they are actually within the divine plane. So these are two different perspectives and two different levels at which things can be understood. So now what we are trying to understand is what exactly happened with Sita when she was abducted. So in general, for us, the actions that we make, they are broadly guided by our bonds and our boundaries. Say, for example, if I get angry right now with someone, at someone. Now, if I am thinking that, oh, this person has irritated me, I get angry. But if I remember, for example, I'm here serving my spiritual master. My spiritual master might not be here, Prabhupada might not be here. Krishna is, I cannot see Krishna, but I know I'm serving Sir Krishna. Then even if I get angry, that bond to Krishna, I don't want to act in a way will misrepresent Krishna, that will displease Krishna. So that bond will keep some, bond itself will bring some boundary. It is not the way I'm supposed to be. This is the way I not behave. So basically, you could say our bonds and boundaries, we are guided and guarded. Both. These two factors, our bonds and our boundaries, we are all guided and guarded by these two things. A child, for example, a child may want to be naughty, a child may do mischievous things, but the child has the child has gone to a hostel or something. A young man, young student, teenager is there. They just want to play and have fun. But they remember, my parents have sent me here. My parents are paying for my education. I need to do my studies well. So that bond itself will create some boundaries. So while bonds and boundaries are two separate things, but they are also related. So our actions are guided by our bonds and boundaries. And then when these bonds and boundaries get removed, then we become more and more vulnerable. So let's look at what happened with respect to how Sita was abducted. So Ravan had a three-stage plan. First was that he thought, I'll get Ram out of the picture. And then he had not seen Lakshman's power. He thought that we will also sideline Lakshman. And then I will approach Sita. The three characters, he had three stages plans. The first stage was, he told Maricha, you go and play in front of Sita. Just dance around, prance around. And now at this particular point, Sita, when she saw that deer, she was attracted. Hey, this deer is so beautiful. Now, Lakshman said, it's too beautiful. Sometimes some things that we say they are too good to be true. Somebody says, invest $1, you'll get $1 million back. Well, that is too good to be true. So Lakshman said, this, we have traveled across the jungles so far. There's no deer which looks as attractive as this. And then also, he said that while this deer is playing, all other animals are going away from it. A deer is not considered to be a fearful animal. So there's something suspicious over here. Sita said, no, but it looks so attractive. You're too suspicious. Ram, can you get this deer? So now, here, at one level, her motive was not just enjoyment. He said that she was thinking, this is such an extraordinary deer. There's only 1 year remaining for their exile to get over. He said, this deer could be our souvenir from the forest. We take it back with us, and then I can give it to Kaushalya as a memento of what we brought for her from the forest. So it was not just for her enjoyment. She was definitely attracted to the deer. And then she said, okay, can you please get it? Now, although Lakshman was always obedient, Ram saw that Lakshman was very hesitant about this. So he was more safety conscious over here. So Ram said, I will go and get the deer and you guard Sita. So Lakshman was not very happy that Ram was going, but he said, then Ram went away and this deer started running. But the point was to get that deer alive. That's why Lord Ram started chasing the deer. They were chasing Maya Mrugam Daitaya Ipsitam Anvadhavad. Lord Ram started chasing the deer. And the deer went deep into the forest. And slowly, as the deer would suddenly appear and disappear, suddenly take a huge leap, and distance, another huge leap into the height, and he was dodging Lord Ram's attempts to catch him. This cannot be they're not what a deer has the capacity to do. His suspicion also started increasing. His consideration that Lakshman might really be right, that started increasing. Now, of course, Lord Ram is God. But when he's performing the Leela, Nar Leela Kaivalya. He doesn't act as if he's God. So, sorry. Here.
Keep the mic away from the mouth. Keep the mic away from the mouth.
Away from the mouth. Is this better now?
Say bug, they will understand.
Yeah, okay.
Like when you're saying bug, it's something like this.
Per.
Okay, now it's good.
What per particularly?
It makes a pop noise when you say it.
Oh, interesting.
So you're saying like if you can move it a little, but I think
Actually keep it on the side so that
Side.
the wind that's coming out.
Here also, here sound
Yeah, yeah.
like the
This side, huh?
ears.
So here, this one distance, no?
This is
Like this. You tell me what you're like this.
I think that was a good.
Okay. This is too low. Can you hear?
yeah, I think this is low. Can you increase that?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, increase one.
Oh, okay. So it's why didn't you tell me anything till now?
Maybe we can hear Prabhuji, but it was.
I was traveling with one devotee. We were doing some programs together. Sometimes I would give class, sometimes he would give class. So similar problem we had with the mic. So I said, why did you tell? He just replied, the noise was better than your voice.
We were restricted by boundaries and not motivated enough.
So as Lord Ram realized this is some kind of trick, he's recognized this must be some demon, and he decided to kill the demon. Now he decided to shoot an arrow. Lord Ram is Amogha Sharam. His arrows never miss their targets. So he shot, and as soon as Maricha realized that now he's going to be shot, he knew he was going to die. So as soon as the arrow left Lord Ram's bow, immediately he impersonated Ram's voice. And he called out, Lakshman, Sita, loudly. And he was a demon. Yeah. He had that demon's power. He called out extremely loudly. That voice came out. Lakshman to Sita. Now, from Sita's perspective, there was a little fear already there. She thought this deer is right here and you just catch it. And she thought Ram is capable. You just catch it quite easily. Sometimes we think that something is very simple to get. We decide, okay, I'll get this. Then in trying to get that one thing, it becomes a little more complicated, little more complicated, little more complicated. And Sita also knew this is a demon infested area. So there was some fear in her. Now she's also thinking that, I have sent Ram into this danger. And it's one thing, say, when Lord Ram, as a matter of duty, has to go to fight a war against demons. In one sense, even then, she as a devoted wife would be anxious. But here, she has sent Ram on this. There's already that fear combined with a little, did I do something wrong? Did I put him in unnecessary danger? And that's why when she heard that call, she also knew this power of Lord. And she had seen, not seen, but she had later on seen that how Ram had single-handedly destroyed the entire 14,000 demons of Rajasthan. She knew about his prowess, she had confidence in his prowess, she had seen his prowess, it's all there. At this particular point, the love and the anxiety coming from the love, again the problem is coming a little bit. The love and the anxiety from the love started causing her to forget her knowledge of the Lord's position. Love, it led to anxiety. And this became so big that her knowledge of Ram's position. That became solved. And therefore, when she heard that Ram is calling out for her, said, Lakshman, you must go. Lakshman said, Ram is in no danger. Said, the same demon who impersonated as a deer is now impersonating Ram's voice. So now this is Ram. If he's in danger, how can we just be here? You have to go and help him. She was besides herself with anxiety. And Lakshman was just not ready to move. For her, the anxiety became so great. Sometimes when we feel that something just has to be done, and when something is not done, the emotions can take us over completely. So here, so we can say, see, what's the problem? Is it better?
Is anyone changing?
Keep it below your chin.
Sorry?
Below your chin.
Below my chin, like this. Hare Krishna. Okay.
Without the mic, probably we can all hear.
No, Mother is.
No,
Difficult.
that there is not.
Making so much noise.
There's a lot.
Yeah. So is this my mic or your mic? It doesn't make any difference.
This is his problem.
So both of us are free from blame.
Stand. Mic stand.
No, okay. No, but
Can we just have a mic stand for the non-static?
so was this problem not there in the morning classes?
It doesn't happen when you use it. It's just like where you position the mic.
So you tell me where I should position it.
Yeah, but still it's not going.
Yeah, the movement is catching every skin.
Can you get the mic?
I'll just get the back.
Okay,
Can
so-
you have a mic separately with the stand?
I'm okay with whatever. So,
Because
so are you saying that I'm moving too much?
No,
I don't know. It's possible that I'm moving. But why was it not so much there in the previous sessions?
it's never been a problem for me. The static is there. But
Okay.
it's okay. Can you request Yuvati also come in forward?
So when for Sita, she had Ram, it's too loud now, and Lakshman as her protectors. Now Ram was sent away by desire. It was her desire, oh, I want this deer. Because of that desire, Lord Ram went away. And then when Lakshman went away, what was the reason for that? She practically forced Lakshman to go. He was not ready to go. And then sometimes when the emotions become too strong, we may speak things that we don't mean. But what it was that primarily, it was fear. Her fear for the safety of Ram, her fear that she might herself have done a wrong desire, wrong thing in asking for that deer. That fear led her to speak particular words. So I won't go into the specifics of those words, but she goaded and sent Lakshman. So basically, for all of us, we all have certain bonds. You can say as soul, we have bonds that protect us. So our bonds could be with our guru, with our elders, with our spiritual guides, with our family. And these bonds, they often protect us from doing something wrong. But then when we desire something, then that desire can weaken the bond. So because of a desire, in this particular case, Sita sent Rama away. But because of a desire, we may ourselves go away from the people whom we are close to, the people who are well-wishers. Say, you say, no, we regularly spend time with them, we are inspired, we are guided. We say, okay, I want to get a bigger house, I want to buy this, I want to do this. So then we say we don't have time for them. So our desires can take us away at one level from the people who can protect us, who can guide us. And then after that, sometimes if we do something wrong, then we don't want that they come to know about it. And then due to that fear, then also we become close to them. We actually, in one sense, our ultimate bond is to Krishna. But that also becomes distance. So generally, when there is fear, this person shouldn't find out what I had done. So better, let me keep a distance. Let me become more guarded in my talking. So sometimes we may find that Hare Krishna. This is let's hope this is better.
So much better.
Oh my God.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Sorry.
I don't know. Our topic is discussing who is responsible. So one of the definitions of humility is to be ready to apologize for mistakes we are not committed. So anyway, so desire and fear. So what happens is sometimes desire can weaken a bond. Are you able to hear me if I look down also?
Is it too close to you? Like, is it disturbing?
It is not disturbing me, it's disturbing my vision. No, it's okay. It's okay. I can manage. I can just look up. Mhm. So, so fear is also, it makes us close our heart. Sometimes there are different kinds of fear. Sometimes if we are afraid of some external danger, then we may go to those who we feel can protect us or can help us. But sometimes it's a fear that I have done something wrong. Then I don't want them to come to know. Like, it may not be that, okay, I just want to guard my reputation. I just don't want them to be displeased with me. I don't want to cause them distress. It could also be like that. So that fear can also push us away, cause us to push the other person away. Sometimes when they quite often say, suppose somebody is gone to a bar and they're drinking too much. And then suppose they have a friend, maybe you've had enough drinks now. Mind your own business. Like once two friends were there, they went to a bar and one of them drunk and kept drinking. The other person said, I think you have had enough. No. I think drinking so much is not a good idea. No, it's a great idea. I'm enjoying. And the next morning, the second person who had drunk a lot, he woke up. He said, I knew it was a terrible idea. The first person immediately came and said, see, I told you drinking so much was a terrible idea. I said, no, drinking was a great idea. Waking up was a terrible idea. So sometimes when somebody wants to help us and we are caught by a particular desire, or it could be a particular anxiety or a particular desire, and we just start seeing, see what happens is the bond protects. But when we are caught in this the spell of emotions. The bonds that protects, they can seem that they are restricting us. So it protects, but it seems as if it is restricting us. And then, okay, I don't want this bond to be too close. So in this way, Sita actually sent both Ram and Lakshman away. First, now, was she wrong in this? Well, it's like a degree of wrongness. We could say she really didn't know what was that this deer was a dangerous deception. So her sending Ram away. So Sita's hear me. No, but can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Mhm. So we could say at one level, sending Ram away, maybe, maybe not. It might not have been a wrong thing. At that level, she just didn't know anything was. Although Lakshman warned her, she might have thought, okay, this is being a little over suspicious. Then you can say sending Lakshman away. Now, was that wrong? Well, we could say definitely the words she spoke were wrong. She pushed Lakshman away. But then we could say this was also at one level well intentioned. Then this was also not ill intentioned. So it's Lakshman also, although he felt very hurt when Sita accused him that you have an evil eye on me and you want me for yourself. That's why you want Ram to die. You will never have me. I would rather die than be touched by you. When she spoke like this is such a painful thing for Lakshman. He just couldn't bear it. And he said, you don't know what you're saying. And when she spoke like that, he said, okay, you want me to go, I will go. I cannot hear the word like this. I was once trying to do a mediation between a father and a son. So the son was now, adult. And he said, my father is always very cold towards me. And then the son was telling this to me. So then both of them were interested in bhakti, both of them were practicing. But somehow he said, so then father told that, so their mother had passed away. When he was really small, the father was the main caretaker. So his son said that father took care of him physically, but father was very cold. So he said, so his father told me that what had happened was then that he had some board exam, 10th or 12th exam, and he wanted to wake up early in the morning. He had stayed awake late. He told my father, please wake me up. And his father saw that he was very tired, so he let him sleep for a couple of more hours, an hour or so. Then when he woke up, he got so angry with his father. He said, it would have been better if you had died and my mother was alive. Now, he obviously didn't mean it, but his father was shattered by that. When he spoke those words, his father just withdrew from there. So I'm doing everything for you. So then I told him, do you remember this? I asked his son after separately. He says, I don't even remember it. He said, I was in so much anxiety for my exams that I had to prepare. I wanted to do well in my exams. So then I talk with the father. He says, do you really feel that he has acted that way? Has he been cold towards you? Has he been like a bad, irresponsible son, cold son, negligent? He says, no. He has done what a son should be doing. So then I told him the same story from the Ramayan. I said, Lakshman never held Sita's words against Sita. It is not then afterwards Sita was kidnapped. Lakshman said, serves her right. Or it is not even when Sita was got back finally. Lakshman said, now when are you going to apologize to me for this? For what you spoke? So the point is that that don't see intention in words spoken in tension.
Very good.
So don't see intention in words spoken in tension. So if something is just a one-time word and that person doesn't act that way ever again, then sometimes life can get to the best of us. And sometimes we may speak things we don't mean at all. Sometimes there's a Freudian slip where there's something slip of tongue, there's something in the heart and that comes out. But then there are always telltale signs of that behavior or that kind of mentality at other times. But when one set of words is completely out of sync with what the person's normal behavior is, then he says, don't take it too serious. Don't take it too seriously. Just understand in the pressure it can happen. So here, Sita spoke some words. Certainly the words were harsh, the words were cruel. So one of the key things in this particular pastime is we'll see how things work out. But after that, the next thing was that Ravan came over there. And when Ravan came over there, he started, he came first in the garb of a mendicant. And he came in the garb of a sadhu. So his idea was that he wanted to lower the guards of Sita. And now in the later retellings of the Ramayana, the Lakshman Rekha is mentioned. That Sita Lakshman created a protective circle around Sita. And Ravan tried to come in, he couldn't come in. And then he said, I'm very hungry. Please give me some alms. And Sita said, yes, please, please wait for some time. My husband will come back and then he will serve you. And then she said, so I'm very hungry. Please give me food right now. I said, just wait for a few days. A sage has come to your home asking for alms. Do you want to keep him starving? Do you want to offend a sage? Do you want to destroy your entire family by offending the sage? Now here, what he did was that Sita had a respectful service attitude. And it was that service attitude that he exploited. And when Sita came out of the Lakshman Rekha, it was coming out of Lakshman Rekha. That it was not for fun she came out. No, it was, she thought, let me serve the sage. And then as soon as she came out, then there was some more discussion that happened, but I won't go into that at this point. Basically, then Ravan got the opportunity and Ravan abducted Sita. So even this action, we could say, was well-intentioned. So none of the actions were ill-intentioned. Or sending Ram away, then Sita, so Lakshman away, then coming out. All of those actions were well-intentioned. But there is a key principle over here. The Mahabharata is described that whenever we do an action, or how do we decide whether an action is right or wrong? So we can look at the action itself. We can look at the intent of the action. And then we can look at the consequence of the action. So what did one do? What did I do? Why did I do it? And what was the result of what I did? So in general, good intention, it is not equal to, nor is it a substitute for good intelligence. Good intention is not a substitute for good intelligence. That we may have good intentions. Say if you're not a doctor and if your loved one is sick, we think, okay, I'll guess and give you some medicine. Or, I'll just guess and do some surgery on you. Well, no, good intention does not, is in life, we may have good intentions. So you can say when somebody has good intentions, they are caring. But we also need good intelligence. Good intelligence means we need to be careful. So to be caring is good. Say when there's a pandemic, suppose there's a infectious disease that is spreading all around. Now, if somebody close to us is sick, we care for them. But in caring for them, if we don't ourselves take proper precautions, then instead of helping them, then we end up getting the same infection. And then for leave alone helping them, we need someone else to help us. So being caring is important, but being careful is also important. So generally, it is the way the world is that generally, if I do a good thing, I expect something good to happen to me. If I do a favor to someone, then I expect that in future that person should do some favor to me. That's how we expect the world to reciprocate. And yes, there are people who will reciprocate like that, but not everyone. Or sometimes somebody is in need and we lend them some money. And then they squander the money and then they ask more from us. And they keep asking more from us. And then they blame us that we didn't help them. See, what kind of person is this? So sometimes there are people in this world who will exploit our good intentions and they will exploit the good actions that we do out of good intentions. So when that happens, then we have to recognize that good intentions alone are not enough in this world. So generally speaking, when we talk about boundaries, we talk about boundaries against bad actions. Bad actions means, say, if I get angry. Okay, and I get angry also, I should have boundaries to my anger. I may raise my voice, but I'm not going to raise my fists. Okay, that's a boundary. So it's relatively easy to understand that for bad actions, boundaries are required. But sometimes, even for good actions, boundaries are required. Actions that are driven by vices, for those definitely boundaries are required. But actions that may be driven by virtues, for those also boundaries are required. Somebody may want to care for somebody else, and that's good. But we also have to evaluate whether my caring is actually helping this person or not. So Sita had a service attitude, but Ravan exploited that service attitude. And the world is there. The world is, in one sense, filled with various kinds of people. And just because we are good doesn't mean the people whom we deal with will also be good. Now, this doesn't mean we have to start assuming that everybody is a bad person. No, it just means that we need to be careful. So Sita, now she could say the sage is there. Now, I want to serve the sage, but it's also we could have said that she knew that it's a jungle, that it's a dangerous place. Ram had warned her about the dangers of a forest. She also knew that there were demons over there in that area. And she had already experienced that there was some danger because of which something was fishy with the deer. That's why Ram had to go away for so long. And then Ram had called out. Apparently, Ram had called out. Lakshmana had also gone. So surely there was some danger over there. So if this person were really a sage, then would he not understand her predicament? Would he not accept that, okay, there'll be a little delay? So now again, there's very important differentiation over here. There is blaming and taking responsibility. Or you could say that there is, for example, say if we are doing some work in our home and we hear somebody playing on the streets and then look out and we say our neighbor's son is playing ball on the street, in the middle of the street. We think, hey, maybe that's not safe. maybe there are roads, this is a road, cars can go on this road, we should not be playing. And we think maybe I should tell him, but we are busy doing something, maybe some phone call comes and we forget about it. And then we hear suddenly the screeching of a car and the screaming of a boy. And then we run out and we see that boy has been hit by a car. Like that has happened. Now we are not to be blamed for that. Isn't it? It's not that we did something wrong, but still we will feel responsible. If the police come and arrest us, they can't arrest us for that. We're not legally to be responsible for it, but there is a moral responsibility. Maybe I could have done something to prevent this. And so the point here is not that sometimes when somebody is victimized, like Sita was victimized. So the point is not to blame Sita. Like victim blaming or victim shaming is a terrible thing. We're not talking about that at all over here. We're saying that the world is a place that is dangerous. And if somebody comes now, Sita's abduction, the primary blame for that is Ravan. Ravan was a vicious person, and that's why Sita was abducted. But the fact is, we live in a world where there are vicious people. And that's why it is from our side also, we need to guard ourselves. We need to protect ourselves. That's why blaming and taking responsibility is two different things. So blaming means it is all your mistake. But taking responsibility is what could I have done to prevent it? So if somebody commits a crime, it is the criminal who is responsible for that crime. But did the victim, the person who was victimized, did they do something which made the criminal's job easier? Like if say somebody comes and robs our thief, the thief that is responsible for robbing, the thief needs to be caught. But suppose we had accidentally forgotten to lock our home in a hurry, then that is a mistake on our part also. So from both perspectives we are looking over here. It is when we take responsibility, that does not mean that the criminal is not to be blamed. The criminal is primarily the culpable party, but we also need to take responsibility. So in this world, there are dangers and temptations everywhere. And for each one of us, if we are to be safe, we need to protect ourselves. Srila Prabhupada said that we have to fly our own plane. And flying our own plane means that we have to take responsibility for our safety. That means now there will be others who can protect us. There will be people, there will be practices, there will be principles. But it is ultimately for us to make sure that we apply those principles. So when the principle, I said we're talking about boundaries. I said I'll start by talking about boundaries. So what is the importance? I talked about how boundaries and bonds, both of them for Sita, the bonds were weakened because of her desire and her fear. And the boundary was weakened because of her service attitude. So for us, now I'll talk more about bonds in the last session tomorrow when we're discussing, but let's focus on boundaries right now. So what is the importance of boundaries? The importance is then safety. The boundaries keep us safe. If there are no boundaries, it's safe. Safe is from both two things. One is external and internal. External means dangers from outside can come and agitate us. So boundaries keep us safe from that. And internal means from within also sometimes desires may come up. So for example, if somebody is a recovering alcoholic, and then they're serious about the recovery, and their home is right next to a bar, then what is going to happen? There'll be no bar for them to go to the bar. So if they're serious, then external boundary would mean that, okay, no, I'm not going, I have to, it may be some trouble, but I have to relocate. I have to stay a little bit far away from them. So we create some external boundaries. So now, sometimes I'll just, if they are staying right next to a bar, then while coming back, they see the bar and the desire comes within them. So like, it's more from outside to in the desire has come. But sometimes it may happen if they're staying very close to a bar, they're at home, maybe they're alone, they're feeling a little bored. From inside a desire comes, let me drink. If the bar is close by, then immediately you go there. So that means external means from where the trigger is coming. It can come from outside or it can come from inside also. So boundaries keep us safe to some extent. So we need to recognize the boundaries. And then we need to establish the boundaries. Recognizing the importance of boundaries is fair enough. Everybody recognizes that to some extent. Now establish the boundaries. So what happens with respect to these boundaries? These boundaries can be coming from three sources. One is legal. The law itself brings some boundaries also to people's behavior, isn't it? Another case, the legal boundaries are very broad. Like say drinking is not illegal. Say drinking and driving is illegal. They're legal boundaries. Now beyond that, you can say there are social or cultural boundaries. So for example, if somebody drinks too much and then their speech starts slurring and they start making a mess of themselves, they start becoming an embarrassment. Then people notice that, people disapprove that. That itself is a boundary. So now it is important for us that we place ourselves in a culture that itself also builds some boundaries for us. Like if a student goes to college and in the college, sometimes it's like flouting boundaries that is considered cool. If somebody says, I don't drink, hey, you're still a milk drinking baby. People try to make fun of such a person. Okay, if that's happening, then we need to find out another social circle. Where? So we need to have a social circle that is supportive for us. So there are some boundaries that are established by society, by culture. So now, for example, across history, when say the two genders interact, there has always been some boundaries. Now, the specific boundaries that are there for the interaction of the genders, they may vary based on culture, they may vary based on profession, they may vary based on particular situations. But the principle of boundaries is important. Now, beyond that, there are individual boundaries. That means, say, if I am vulnerable for something, then that is a boundary which I may need to establish. Say, now, in the West, drinking alcohol or drinking wine, it's just a normal part of society. In fact, there was a British thinker who wrote a whole book. The taste of wine is the proof that God loves us. So his idea was that if God didn't exist, if a loving God didn't exist, how could something as tasty as wine exist? Well, there are so many more tasty things in the world, isn't it? But the point is that that kind of boundary is very little there. The idea in mainstream Western society is drink, but don't get drunk. It's like you can go to the edge of 100-story building, peer out of the window as much as you want, but don't fall down. Well, why take the risk? There could be people who don't. Many people may not do that. But then the danger is always there. Why quote that danger? So so in such a society, for example, if somebody is an alcoholic or recovering alcoholic, and they have to create individual boundaries. And we all use devices, we all use internet, we all use social media. In some ways, we all need devices. But if we find that our use of devices is becoming excessive, it is becoming compulsive, then maybe we have to create boundaries for ourselves. So that could mean, we install some apps which regulate access to particular app, to the device after a particular amount of time, or whatever. Based on the particular challenge that we are facing, sometimes there are individual boundaries that we need to be established. So now after establishing the boundaries also need to be enforced. Like a country can have borders, but if anybody can walk through the border and come in, then what happens is that border is as good as not having any border, or as bad as not having any border. If the border is completely porous, anybody can go through it, then of course immigration is a big political issue in America here right now. But the point is that the borders are of no use if they are not enforced. And the same principle applies to boundaries. Now, how are boundaries enforced? So generally, when we enforce boundaries, it is it is by some external change has to be done. Because for most of us, the Lakshman Rekha was something physically constructed. For us, that is a physically drawn rekha. It is a mystical rekha, but it's at least physically drawn rekha. So for us, each one of us, we may have to create what kind of boundary will be there. So it requires enforcing the boundary requires some external change in our life. And not only external change, there also has to be some consequence. Like, okay, we have a boundary, but if you cross the boundary and come inside, you are welcome. We'll make you a citizen. then there is no consequence over there. So there are moments when we may ourselves, in moments of agitation, we may transgress certain boundaries. So if that happens, then we may have to take individual responsibility to enforce certain consequences. Okay, so if I decide I'm not going to yell at people or I'm not going to do X, Y, Z, and if I do that, then maybe I need to do something to make amends for it. Something to something to remind myself that there are consequences. So different particular actions may require different boundaries. So what those boundaries could be, that can vary, but without enforcing boundaries, they just become rituals basically. Oh, I was talking with one devotee. He was born to devotee parents, but he was not a very intelligent boy. So he said that. So he was not really following the regulative principles, and his parents were very worried. So I was talking with him, he was very intelligent. So he was an intelligent boy, doing well in his studies and everything. So then he said to me that mm, I I have, he says, my relationship with the regulative principles is different from my parents' relationship. I says, what do you mean? He said, my parents follow the regulative principles. I respectfully neglect them. So now, and people can have, there can be many different rules, but unless the rules are followed, sometimes people idea is that, oh, this is good, but let it stay at a good distance from me. That doesn't work. So I told him that, why do you think the regulative principles are there at all? So he said that, that, yeah, I understand there is some good in them, but I want to enjoy life right now. I said, okay. So the regulative principles don't have to be 1-0. Whether you follow them or you reject them. I said, oh, what is it that you feel that you're not able to enjoy because of the regulative principles? And is there some other way you can enjoy those things? So that you are intelligent. It's not that these are meant to prohibit. They're not meant to strip life of all enjoyment. The point is there is enjoyment in this world, which it's there is a present me and there's a future me. So the enjoyment that we seek, I want the present me to enjoy. But if the present me enjoys at the cost of the future me, then that's not a very healthy form of enjoyment. Yeah. Say if somebody smokes and drinks and enjoys right now, the present me is enjoying, but the future me will have poor health. Future me may have addiction. The future me may have maybe financially irresponsible because spending so much money. So I said that the point of the regulative principles is so that the present you can enjoy in a way that does not harm the future you. Like he was an activist in the green movement, environment movement. So I said that it's like, so his parents told me that it's just like what we want in the green movement is that we want that it's not that the present society has to suffer. There are certain amenities that are required in society now. But the present generation should not be enjoying the luxuries of life in a way that future generations will have to suffer. So it's not that the present generation has to go back to the Stone Age in the name of being eco-friendly. But the present generation has to find a way to have comforts that does not take away those comforts from the future generation. So basically, the boundaries, we're talking about boundaries or regulative principles here. It is what? It's the present me and future me. So both of them are there. The present me, one extreme could be that if we consider, I care only for the present me. I want to have a good time. But then what will happen is, this will lead to degradation in the future. Because my health may not be good, my mind may be addicted. If I care only for the present me, there's a problem. But if I care only for the future me, oh, you do this because it's good for you in the future. Like say, the parents tell children, you only eat Karela and kale because it's good for you. Well, okay, it will be good for me in the future, but what about me right now? I'm suffering. So it is only future me if you're connected. Then what happens is this present suffocation. It is unbearable. So the balance is, so we can have negotiable boundaries. That means the same boundaries may not work for everyone. See, everybody cannot eat the same kind of food. Everybody cannot do the same kind of exercise. Everybody cannot have the same kind of schedule. So but everybody needs boundaries, but the boundaries need to be negotiated in such a way that the present me and the future me, both are cared. Both are cared for. So the present me gets some enjoyment, gets some pleasure, but not at the cost of the future. And it's not that the future me, everything is good for the future, but the present me is not taken care of. So now exactly what that means for whom, that will vary from person to person. Somebody who wants to become fit, maybe they have a physically robust body, they can do a lot of exercise. Somebody else can do moderate level of exercise. Somebody wants to practice spirituality, maybe they can practice a particular level of spiritual practices. But somebody can do much more. So that the boundaries can be negotiable in practice, but the principle of boundaries itself is non-negotiable. Everybody needs some boundaries in our life. So when we are enforcing boundaries, so the key is we have to responsibly negotiate the boundaries. And each person ultimately has to take responsibility. What are the boundaries within which I can live in a way that both my present and the future are good? So Prabhupada would say Krishna consciousness is a positive alternative. So in Krishna consciousness, it is sukham kartum avayam. There are rules and regulations. But the principle is that when we connect with Krishna, there is some joy that we experience right now. And that's why the rules don't seem too restrictive. They don't seem repressive because we get that higher taste. So each person has to find out, how can I practice my life, lead my life in such a way that my present and future both are taken care of. So I'll summarize what we discussed today. Our discussion was broadly on the topic of boundaries. And then, so I discussed about Sita's actions primarily. So how she sent Ram away first, and then she sent Lakshman away, and then she came out of the Lakshman Rekha. So now all these three actions, we'll discuss them elaborately, all of them were well-intentioned. All three of these actions were well intentioned, yet there was a disastrous consequence that resulted. So we discuss how our bonds maybe get weakened. The bonds may get weakened for because of two reasons. One is desires. So because we desire something extraneous, that's why we go away from those bonds that can lift us and protect us. And second can be fear. So it may be a good desire also, not a desire for a bad thing, but still it can make us go away from our bonds. So with respect to fear, we also discuss don't see intention in what is spoken, intention. Hmm? No intention for what is spoken, intention. Now, then I talked about how the boundaries can be weakened. The boundaries can be weakened by our vices, but they can also be weakened by our virtues. Anything in excess. Now we can say we don't want any vice at all, but we may have certain wrong actions and we may not be able to give them up right. But excess of not just vices, but excess of virtues also. So for Sita, it was virtue was her service attitude that was misused. So when we are trying to decide what is the right action and wrong action, this here somewhere, yeah. So when there is action, there is consequence of the action, and there is intent of the action. So the intent might be good, but the consequence may be bad. So good intentions are not a replacement for good intelligence or good judgment. And then lastly, we discussed about primarily about boundaries, how the boundaries can come from. There can be legal boundaries, there can be social cultural boundaries, and then there can be individual boundaries. So our focus was primarily on the individual boundaries. So with respect to individual boundaries, we discussed three things over here. First was the importance. So we need to understand the importance with our own intelligence. Now, how they protect us. They don't restrict us, but they protect us. Then we need to establish the boundaries. So when we are establishing the boundaries, that means we have to find out what is it that is a danger for me and how I can establish. That means there's some external change may be required for us to establish the boundaries. And then when we are enforcing the boundaries, there has to be some disciplining, there's some punishment that has to be there if we do something wrong. And when we are setting the boundaries, they can be negotiable boundaries. Negotiable boundaries means that it is not just that I care only for the present me, or I care only for the future me. If you care only for the present me, there will be degradation in the future. If I care only for the future me, there will be suffocation in the present. So we balance both. So how to balance both? That is something each one of us has to take individual responsibility for, and then find the boundaries within which we can function in a sustainable way. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. So are there any questions or comments?
So my question is, how do you link Sita's action to the bonds weakening, that connection?
Well, Sita's actions basically, this was when she sent Ram away. Ram was one of her protectors. He was her husband. So the desire that, oh, I want the deer, that sent Ram away. And then the word that you spoke, the fear, Ram is in danger. That sent Lakshmana away. So our bonds get weakened by desire and by fear. We all have certain bonds, but say, we have some guide, some friend, some well-wisher. But then, okay, like I use the example, I want to earn more money. That desire is I have no time to spend with my mentor or my guide. Like that desire can take us away from it. Fear can be that we have done something wrong. I don't want them to come to know. So I avoid that person. So desire and fear can take us away from the bonds. Thank you. Yes, please.
Thank you for very enlightening lecture. So, so in the story as a reference of Ramayan and any other Shastric story, from our vintage point right now, we always look back to understand the message. So the question I want to understand is that how to make better choices in the moment, like Mother Sita, Ram, Lord Ram, all of them were avatars, and then also they did as a pastime, they made sequence of choices, which is allowing us to learn lessons. But as a preventive or a measure for a day-to-day activities and a spiritual neophyte sadhak, how to be aware where we can digest these lessons and make better choices.
Yes. I think I realized that letting you ask this question was not a good choice on my part. So, so the thing is that in general, it's difficult in the movement itself to make right choices, but we all learn from experience. So, intelligence has many different meanings. Now, one of the meanings of intelligence is that intelligence helps us to make a stronger connect between choice and consequence. Like a child may think, I ate chocolate, this is so nice. But a mother sees that if he eats chocolates too much, the weight will increase, my teeth will get spoiled, the stomach will get upset. So many things can happen. So that intelligence means we see the link between choice and consequence. Now, can we see always? No, we are finite beings. But there will always be situations where we will not be able to see the link between choice and consequence. But we can increase our capacity. So you could say our intelligence can broadly, our intelligence increases by study. So we study wisdom texts, study set texts like the Bhagavad Gita. Then it also increases by sharing, sharing experiences. Right? Okay, in this situation I did this, and then maybe we could have spoken like this at that time. So we learn from those who are trying to live those wisdom. And then lastly, it is by our own reflecting on our experiences. So contemplating our experiences. So intelligence basically grows by these three things. Scripture firstly gives us the the scripture gives us a vision that say lust or greed or anger, they lead to destructive things. Now we may say that everybody knows, but not necessarily, isn't it? And nowadays the propaganda is such that you can enjoy and you can get away with the enjoyment quite often. So that actions they lead to consequence. Scripture shows us that. But what does this mean in today's world? That is more through association. And even if we have good association, but still nobody else is going to live our life. It is we who are to live our life. That's why using what we have learned from scripture, using what we have learned from association, we have to reflect on our own experiences. And then we learn, okay, in these moments, I make certain decisions which tend to be wrong. We also have something like instinctive intelligence, what you say, the gut feeling or sixth sense or whatever. In some places, some of us are good at thinking on the feet. In some areas, we might be able to, in the moment, come up with good choices. So there we don't have to necessarily slow ourselves down and pause. But there are areas where we can see that, okay, in these particular situations, I tend to make bad decisions. So somebody might say, okay, when there's a lot of work to do, immediately, I start thinking, what is you prioritize? What is you prioritize? I can organize things well. Okay, let's do this first, let's do it later. I'm able to organize and prioritize nicely. Then we don't have to slow ourselves down in that. But say when somebody annoys us, somebody irritates us, we tend to yell at them. We are thinking that I'm fixing the situation, right? So as far as organizing myself, I am good. I can think in the moment. But when somebody does something wrong, I think I'm correcting them so that we'll do things better. But maybe we're correcting them, I use such words that it hurts the relationship and creates bigger problems. Maybe that's the place where I have to slow myself down. So it is a gradual process.
Yeah, thank you very much for the wonderful lecture.
Okay.
I've always.
Can you give the mic,
Thank
please?
you.
I think you should. Thank you very much for the wonderful lecture, as always, Prabhu. My question is similar to what he had asked, the intent, action, and consequences. Sometimes we do with good intention, but the consequences are not as expected or, favorable. How do we deal with it? I understand that you said, this answered my question partially, the study, sharing experience and the talk.
Yeah, so we learn from experience that just because that when do my actions done with good intention lead to good result, and when do they not lead to good result, and based on that we make a decision. Say we may have a attitude of helping others, but sometimes we help someone and that person is so grateful, that person actually takes the help and they grow up and they come to a better situation. Now on the other hand, I help someone and that person becomes more dependent, more clingy, and then more demanding also, and they start complaining when we don't help them rather than being grateful. So then when that happens, then we have to observe, okay, which kind of person, what are the traits of this person, what are the traits of this person. Then maybe sometimes we can say, I'll offer this much help, but then you need to do this much. And we see their intent also, they're reciprocal, they're doing something tangible. Then we can invest more time. We can invest more energy in helping. So we have to evaluate where our good intentions do lead to good results and where they don't necessarily lead to good results. And accordingly, we need to direct our energies.
Ravi, too.
So, my question is, first you said that sending Rama was well intentioned. My question is with regard to that one, how come sending him was well intentioned, particularly when Sita was sending him to fetch the golden deer that was never seen before, that was never heard before. Rama also did not thought about it, just went away. Then how could it be a well intentioned?
Well, there can be actions which are done with good intention, but just good intention does not necessarily mean there's a good judgment. The two are different things. So now, if you see, one of the things that the epics depict is that life is complex. And Sita, her desire was also at one level. I said it was not just for her own pleasure. She was thinking, let's take something back for Kaushalya when we go back. Now, Lord Ram, he within his leela also was thinking, Sita has sacrificed so much for me. She is a princess. She has lived in the forest without complaining, without resenting. She's asking one small thing from me. Maybe I can just get it from her. There's a similar incident in the Mahabharata where Draupadi, they are by the banks of the Ganga river, and Draupadi sees a 1,000 petal lotus. And she's attracted to it. And Bhima jumps into the river and gets the lotus out and gives it to her. And seeing her so happy, he's happy to see her happy. And then he desires, then she says, can you find out where these lotuses come from? Can we get more of these lotuses? Then Bhima goes up the river and he goes up the Himalayas. That's where he meets Hanuman and he has many adventures over there. So he knows that Draupadi is sacrificing a lot. He wants to please her. So that's a natural desire. It is not that any of those decisions at that time itself can be said to be bad judgment, either from Sita or from from Ram. Sometimes it's only when the consequences come out, then we realize it was a bad judgment. So life is complex. We just do the best that we can. Thank you. Yes, please. Yeah.
Thank you so much for making a very thought-provoking class. And I think I'm particularly intrigued and interested in knowing the aspect of enforcing boundaries. I think most of us come from families where there's a hierarchy, and in families when you want to enforce certain boundaries, it's not very easy to do that. So how would you suggest in interaction, say there is an action that you don't like, or we don't like a lack of action? What is a good way, would you say, in relationships where we can think about enforcing boundaries?
Okay, so in a family, especially with hierarchies, how can we enforce boundaries? So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 12:15, Yasman no dvijate loko, lokan no dvijate chaiha. That the devote, the person who is dear to me, Krishna says, they are not disturbed by others and they don't disturb others. So normally what happens in our relationships, I disturb you and you disturb me. Hmm? That is the opposite version of the Dati Pratigrahanati. So that in one sense, that's just natural in life. It's unavoidable. But when Krishna says, don't disturb and don't be disturbed. Now, what does this mean? To some extent, disturbance is unavoidable. But my understanding of how this works can be practically applied is, say, in the interaction between two people, we all have certain things. Say this is A, this is B. Now this is non-negotiable for A. And these are non-negotiable for B. And in between, and say this is what is negotiable. So although there is a hierarchy, everybody has some amount of space within that hierarchy. So not that anybody's life is rigidly controlled 24 hours a day. So we have to find out, first of all, what are the things that are so important for me that are non-negotiable. So for example, if somebody is practicing bhakti, you may say, okay, I want to do my japa, I want to go maybe once a week, twice a week to satsang programs or temple, whatever. But this is non-negotiable. And they may say that, okay, the family members say, no, but okay, taking care of these responsibilities, home, this is what you need to do. So that is non-negotiable for them. So then once that is clear, so generally when something that is non-negotiable for the other person, we do the opposite of that. That's what disturbs them too much. And when something is non-negotiable for us, they do the opposite of that. They make it negotiable. Then that disturbs us. So once we find out from both sides what is non-negotiable, then both sides can respect that. And sometimes it may have to be communicated properly, politely but firmly. But everybody has those non-negotiables. The problem is that if this kind of analysis is not done, then either everything becomes non-negotiable, and then people feel you are being fanatical, you are being extremist. And or otherwise everything becomes negotiable. And then we feel I have no space, I'm losing myself over here. I have no individuality left at all. So try to analyze. So everything is non-negotiable. If we make everything non-negotiable, and the other person will say, I'll make this relationship only non-negotiable. It won't work. So everything non-negotiable, that will make us completely fanatical or inflexible. That won't work. But if we say nothing is non-negotiable, then again, as I said earlier, we'll feel suffocation. We will feel as if we are losing our own identity. Mm. There is no scope for me to be who I am. So the idea is that decide, deliberate and decide what is negotiable and what is non-negotiable. So this takes time. And sometimes this may require some difficult discussions. And sometimes somebody else may say, you should do this or do this. And we might take it as a casual request, but for them it may be a very important thing. So what is important, what is not important? If there's proper discussion, then we can understand that better. Okay? Thank you. Yes.
Okay, so my question is related to the some content in the morning. So when we are in a particular situation, we have this voice or thought which tells us that uh, maybe this is not okay, but then like, oh, it's not harming anyone. And we talked about the circle of mind and circle of intelligence. Is it just or we need to strengthen our circle of intelligence, or is it just a dynamic process that sometimes the voice is stronger of one side versus the other? Um,
Yeah, of course, that is true. There are times when the mind will become stronger. And see, also it's important that our focus is not on crushing the mind. Right? Krishna says, make your mind your friend. Krishna is not saying destroy your mind, nor is he saying make your mind your slave. Mm. Normally, if we really literally consider something to be an enemy, either we want to destroy them or we want to enslave them. They say make the mind a friend. That's different from a normal way an enemy is dealt with. It is not that the mind is to be crushed completely. The mind also needs to be accommodated at times. So now, what does it mean? If our emotions, see, are our emotions always obstacles? Well, no, emotions can be obstacles. Say we want to wake up in the morning and the alarm rings and just don't feel like it. It could be because of laziness, but it could also be because of tiredness. You see? So if I have slept very late, or if I'm exhausted because the previous day was very tiring, or maybe I'm sick somewhat. So can I just completely okay? I'm feeling very tired. No, I'm going to wake up, no matter what happens. Okay, we may get ourselves off our bed and do some work for some time. We may lift ourselves up, and after some time, somebody else has to lift us up. So that's also not very healthy. So when we say our emotions can be pointers to reality. Like say, I'm feeling tired. I just don't feel like waking. It can be a pointer to reality. Or that emotions are not meant intrinsically to mislead us. Our emotions. So when we do something and we feel good about doing that, is that good feeling a bad thing? Not necessarily. If somebody has musical talent, then when they just hear music, they do music, they feel so good about it. There is a pointer to something that is natural for them. Mhm. So that the emotions can be pointers to reality, but emotion can be also prompters of illusion. That- So we have a tendency to be lazy and oh God, just sleep something or eat something or whatever it is. Now when we feel hunger, now is that hunger illusion? Well, no, hunger is a biological mechanism. But then is all hunger always indicative of our need for food? Well, not necessarily, isn't it? So we have to, in one sense, become a. That's why the idea of this emotional intelligence. Mhm. Emotional intelligence means to become more self-aware. Like to become aware of when my emotions are actually pointing toward reality and when they are prompting me towards illusion. So, is it possible to always get a foolproof assessment of that. May not necessarily always, but we can definitely get it more and more right. So thank you very much. If you have a question.
Sorry, Prabhu, I just wanted to clarify one thing. As at the first section specifically, there was a lot of discussion about Sita's actions. And me personally, I couldn't exactly found how the, like, I couldn't exactly uh, understand how the aspect of boundaries fit into the story. You could clarify that, how the concept of,
Well, the main concept was that Sita came out of Lakshman Rekha. The Lakshman Rekha was the boundary. And she came out of Lakshman Rekha not because of anything negative, it came out of the positive. And she had a service attitude. But then the principle is that boundaries protect us. And say, why, how do boundaries protect us? It is sometimes our good qualities may also be exploited by others. So good quality normally lead us to good actions, but sometimes they may not. So Sita's coming out of Lakshman Rekha. So boundaries was one part of the class. I also talked about bonds and other things before. But how did she come to the situation where coming out of that boundary would lead to such a disaster? So we all have bonds. So when the bonds are weakened and then we come out of the bonds, then it becomes a real problem. Yes,
Thank you. I was thinking of the point that, like practically for us, we may have to set boundaries to, there's so many different ways that Maya is now, attacking us in new ways. So how much should we educate ourselves of the consequence of something, could be just like binge watching or, something social media. How much should we educate us from the material side of the consequence? Because we may not, connect it right away that, oh, how much time I'm wasting or,
How much should we educate ourselves from a material perspective? Well, it depends primarily on how much we are prone to something. So, if we are prone to a particular behavior, see, sometimes we say the whole material world is filled with Maya. Well, it's not that simple. In the material world, also there's Sattva-guna, Rajoguna, Tamoguna. So yes, through the material world, through technology, there is so much possibility for distraction and entanglement. But through technology itself, there is increasing awareness coming of the dangers of distraction. And through technology, also resources are being made to try to minimize the dangers of distraction and entanglement also. So we need to see, because the material world has unlimited dangers. And it is not that just knowing about various dangers in this world is itself going to make us spiritual. And like knowing about the distresses of the world is important. But if just knowing about the distresses of the world could make us spiritual, then we could say probably doctors know about the distresses of the world more than everyone else. Are doctors the most spiritual profession in the world? Well, not necessarily. So we need to know about especially those dangers or the consequences of those distractions or those temptations which either we are ourselves prone to or those whom we are responsible for our prone to. Parents may say that, adults may say, I am not interested in social media, I don't want to get distracted by social media. But our children may be. Then, or our younger generation may be. Then we need to protect them. So then we need to know some things about them. So basically, I think it's need-based. When we say vidyam cha, that we also need to know about the material world. But how much do we know about the material world? It depends on what are the likely dangers for us in our particular situation. Yes, okay.
I have a question around the viciousness of people. That there are people who manipulate and are vicious around you. And even after setting the boundaries, sometimes you see or feel that, they still exploit those boundaries or are not respectful of those boundaries. So in that case, what should one person do
to keep that positive energy, within himself and not get distracted by, what, the other person or, is doing. How should one be, even after setting the boundaries? How should one
Yes.
protect oneself and be forgiving as well? I mean,
There are two kinds of people in the world. Some people bring happiness wherever they go. Others bring happiness whenever they go. So when whenever there will always be these people from the second category. Hmm? That people that they'll just be a pain. Hmm. Now we may try to create some boundaries. Like some people just want to keep talking. We try to give them some indications. Suddenly, I need to go. And they just don't. They just hang on. And now sometimes we just can't do much about the nature of the people. They may not be bad people. That's just their nature. So if we consider our spectrum means a broad range of relationships. So there could be some people who net influences positive ones. That means being with them, it gives strength to us. And there's some people, their influence is negative. Being with them requires strength. Mm. So now, what we need to make sure is that we have a balance between both these people. To some extent, sometimes the people who require strength will anyway come in our life. But then the people being with whom gives us strength, we need to make sure that we have time for them. So we adjust our schedule, make it a priority. Then we get strength from that association, and that strength will enable us to bear these people. So sometimes I didn't have time to go into this. See, when you talk about boundaries, some boundaries can be physical. Mhm. That means that, okay, this person, I really can't deal with this person, then we stay in separate homes. We have a home little far away from each other. There's American comedian Woody Allen. He said that, my wife and I, we drive different cars, we eat food in different kitchens, we enter and leave our homes from different doors, we watch different TVs. We're doing everything possible to keep our marriage together. So that is the shell of a marriage. There's no marriage left over there in that sense. But the point is that sometimes physical distancing is not possible. Hmm. So sometimes the relationship is such that say we have to work with someone, a colleague at workplace, or and then when the physical is not, but a little bit of psychological distancing. So psychological boundaries means what? That when a person can affect us generally to the extent we are emotionally open to them. If I don't expect anything from someone, or if I have learned this person is their way of behaving only is harsh. They speak roughly, they criticize. And I have stopped expecting any kind of soft behavior from them. I stopped expecting helpfulness from them. But then that doesn't mean I don't need soft. I don't need someone who is soft. I don't need someone helpful. But that I stop expecting from this person. I get that particular need fulfilled from someone else. So psychological boundaries, that they are sometimes that's what we need to do. Mm. So in every relationship, it can be sorry, every relationship, there is something which is expected as a mandatory. And there is something which is voluntary. Is it that say if we meet someone, we greet them politely. That is a mandatory etiquette. But after that, how much we open our heart to them, how much exactly we spend time with them, all those there are voluntary things involved. So we may have to do the mandatory in that relationship, but the voluntary we can psychologically turn off to some extent. But that's possible only when we have some other places where our psychological needs are fulfilled.
So basically, we should ignore them to some extent or to the most extent and try to, conserve that positive energy that you have and, try to be peaceful because you don't have control on other people's actions, but you have the way, control on how you're going to react to
Well,
such
I
situations.
think ignoring is not exactly the thing I'm talking about. Ignoring is possible, but what I was talking more is about lowering expectations. Hmm. So sometimes, like, if there's no physical distancing possible, then it's a little difficult to ignore. So you see, some people are just chatterboxes. They just keep talking, talking, talking. Now, yes, you can say we are ignoring the talking in one sense. We are doing something else. We mentally switch off. But it's more that we understand, this person, this is the way it is. I don't really expect. So we lower our expectations. So once we lower our expectations, one of the aspects may be ignoring. So I would say that it's like lowering expectations is the bigger thing. And within that, ignoring could be one aspect. Because we can't just ignore that person all the time, especially if we have to be in an ongoing kind of relationship with them. But overall, lower expectations. So thank you very much. Shri Ramachandra Bhagwan ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki. Gaur
Hare Krishna. So during this presentation, I was appreciating how Prabhu's talks are like so complete, like talking of bonds and boundaries and going into okay, this point has these 3 points and sub points and so thorough analysis. And I was appreciating how Prabhu makes it so complete, and that's why he is known as the spiritual science. So thank you so much, Prabhuji.